In this video, I would like to develop complex, subtle, maybe contradictory, nuanced, speculative thoughts about the Jewish question. What are the Jews? And since I know that the Jews usually have a good sense of humor, I will begin by a joke which popped in my mind a few years ago, that if God could talk directly to the Jews, he would say, "You are my chosen people, but don't forget that I am German." And he would add, "You are my most painful headache, but I love you nonetheless. From Germany with love, signed God." That's what God would probably say to the Jewish people if he could talk directly to them. But now let's be more serious. I guess that I am a Hegelian, so I will try to apply the method of knowledge of Hegel, namely that the truth is the whole, and that in order to know what an object is, in this case the Jews, one must adopt an encyclopedic view of the Jews, and the Jews are a very good illustration of what Hegel's dialectics is, because every attempt to know what the Jews are proves to be self-contradictory, to contain opposite determinations within itself, so it forces the mind to transcend the contradiction, to evolve, to progress, to move further in order to find a kind of knowledge which is not contradictory. And I will illustrate this very briefly by, if you think, which happens in the white nationalist circles, that the Jews are an anthropological ethnic group. From my vague knowledge, I know that there are at least 3 or even 4 ethnic groups within what is called the Jewish people. There are the Mizrahi Jews, the Jews of Israel, not those who live in Israel, but those who historically have lived in the eastern Mediterranean part, maybe in Turkey, and yeah. There are the Sepharadic Jews, those who have lived historically in, I guess, Northern Africa, Spain, Portugal. And there are the Ashkenazi Jews, those who have lived historically in Central and Eastern Europe, and then have moved to Western Europe, and they are what the white nationalists call the Jews, namely the Ashkenazi Jews, which are, as far as I know, the most intelligent ethnic group on earth. The average IQ of the Ashkenazi Jews is on average 115, which is 1 standard deviation above the white means. And if my calculations are correct, it means that the average Ashkenazi Jew is more intelligent in terms of IQ than 84% of whites. I'm not sure that the calculations are exact, but the idea is that the average Jew is very smart. And yeah. And also, I know that there are Ethiopian Jews, black African Jews. So if you try to define the Jews as an ethnic group, which is the attempt of some white nationalist circles, it's contradictory, because there are different ethnic determinations within the Jewish people. So you are forced to adopt a new mode of consciousness to try to define the Jews as a cultural group. Then you are forced to envision the possibility that the Jews might be a group which shares cultural values. But then again, you find contradictions, because there are leftist Jews, right-wing Jews, non-political Jews, heterosexual Jews, homosexual Jews, conservative Jews, liberal Jews. So the qualification, the attempt to grasp what the Jews are from a cultural standpoint is not satisfactory, because then again there are contradictions. So you evolve to the religious determination, and then you say the Jews are those who believe in the Jewish God. But then you find that there are atheistic Jews, that not all Jews believe in the monotheistic Jewish God, and that there are many Jews who would be qualified as Jews on cultural and ethnic grounds which are not believers. So even the religious determination is not enough, and there are non-Jewish, from a religious standpoint and from an ethnic standpoint, non-Jewish whites, for instance, who promote Jewish goals in their political activity. And I have read an anti-Semitic French writer who wrote many books about the Jews, and his vision was that the Jews are a mindset. They are not a people, they are a state of mind. So that you can become a Jew without having Jewish blood, and you can cease to be a Jew even if you are ethnically Jewish. So it's very complex. And the Jews are a mystery, and I have known from personal experience that whatever we qualify as mysterious is probably speculative understanding not yet achieved, because what is mysterious comes from the Greek word mystes, which means the initiated, which has given us mystical, which is the union with the divine. And Hegel says that what is mystical is what is speculative. So the Jews remain mysterious, and the Jewish question is a mystery because it has not yet been speculatively grasped. And the Jews are a mystery for the non-Jews, but they are a mystery to themselves. The Jew is a mystery to himself, and that may be the best definition of the Jewish identity. The Jew is the one who is mysterious to himself. That's a profound thought. And then I will briefly talk that everyone vaguely knows about some Jews, at least, because in the world today, either you are a monotheist in the form of Christianity, Islam, or Judaism. So these three religions are derived historically from Jewish sources, and there are many Christians and many Muslims in the world. Or you are communist, you are living in a communist country or a formerly communist country, and then you've heard of Karl Marx and probably Trotsky and Lenin, who was, I don't know, partly Jew, we don't know. So even the North Koreans, they may not know a lot about the Jews, but they know about communism, which is an idea springing from the mind of Karl Marx, who was a Jew. So except for some remote primitive tribes living in Siberia or the Amazonian forest or God knows where, every human has been vaguely influenced by Jewish ideas or ideas derived from Jewish minds. So, yeah. So the Jewish question is a universal question. And yeah. Now I will talk about my personal experience of the Jews. And in my library, I have at least 30 books which are devoted solely to the Jewish question. I have not read them entirely, but I get the broad idea. And I will talk about my own personal experience, and I will try to to classify many figures of consciousness, which are forms of the expression of the Jewish people. And these figures of consciousness, which are both ideas, they could be Platonic ideas in a way, but they are also really existing people. And some of these ideas, some of these figures of consciousness are contradictory, namely they are opposed to one another. And the truth, as Hegel says, is the totality or the whole. So it is only by developing the manifestation of all the modes of being of the Jewish consciousness that one might be able to grasp what the Jews are. And I will begin by making a remark about the Jewish question as we are being taught in school. Of course, the National-Socialists persecuted the Jews. We are not really taught the reason why, except that the National-Socialists were paranoid and hateful, and they were seeking a scapegoat to explain the problems of the economic crisis, and they were megalomaniac, driven by racism. So these are the explanations that are broadly given, namely that the National Socialists were insane, and they persecuted the Jews without any reason. That's what we were taught in school in the West. I will begin by my first encounter, which was an intellectual encounter with a Jew. It was Éric Zemmour, the current candidate for the French election. He was the first right-wing author that I ever read. And he is the one who, to speak like Kant, awoke me from my dogmatic slumber, because back then I was some sort of a radical communist. And for the first time, I was confronted by the writings of a right-wing author. And he happened to be a Jew coming from Northern Africa, whose parents had emigrated to France, and they had to go through a process of cultural assimilation, namely they had to adapt to French culture, and he himself, as far as I know, he fell in love with French culture, and he became very interested in the history, the culture, the literature of France, and he became, and still is, a cultural Frenchman. He's more culturally knowledgeable about France than 99.9% of the French population. And he's very smart. He's a Sepharadic Jew, I guess, a Jew from Northern Africa, so he doesn't look European at all. He looks like a Jew, one might say. But he is very intelligent, very strong. He's physically weak, but his intellectual strength is very, very developed. He's charismatic. He's serious, but he makes jokes. So he's really a very strong character, a very intelligent, very well knowledgeable, and he's a character. Yeah, and I really loved him when I discovered his writings in 2016, because he defended conservative values, and I was discovering this aspect of politics that I had been ignorant of. So yeah, and he's currently promoting a far-right political party, but he's criticized within the French far-right circles for being Jew, because he talks about most of the problems from the perspective of the right of modern France, and he even said that the white heterosexual male was in the process of being exterminated, I think he said, or so he talks about the ethnic question, but he himself is not a white European, so the far-right circles in France kind of accuse him of not being white enough, but he cannot change his ethnic identity. He's ethnically Jewish. He does whatever he can to defend what he believes is worth defending. So the far right French are not really fair to him because, yeah. Then other figures of consciousness that we meet in the Anglo-Saxon world are people like Ben Shapiro. Namely, these are very smart, very intelligent Jews who promote conservative values. But they do not talk about the ethnic question, the current displacement and replacement of Europeans, but they seek to defend conservative values about marriage, family, politics, economics, and so on and so forth. And these figures are admired by many people, white or non-white, but they are kind of resented by the more radical whites because the more radical whites accuse those Jewish intellectuals to manipulate the people by awakening them to politically conservative questions without leading them to the question of ethnicity. So, yeah. Then, to understand the Jews, one must understand the non-Jews and their reciprocal relationship. Someone like Stefan Molyneux, I don't know if he's Jewish. He doesn't look Jewish. He looks Germanic, Nordic, European, but maybe he has Jewish blood, I don't know. But to try to understand the Jewish question, one must understand the reaction that it creates within the mind of the non-Jews, because I know that Stefan Molyneux, he promotes libertarianism, rationality, science, a dispassionate view of questions of race, and some of his followers accuse him of not mentioning the Jewish question, but they don't see that he's promoting ideas which might favor, in a way, the point of view of white nationalists. He cannot do more than what he does. So it's just really, I don't know if he's Jewish, maybe he's not Jewish, but the idea is that he creates paranoia within the white nationalist circles because he's honest, he's courageous, he defends his ideas, but for the white nationalists, that's not enough. So these are the kind of questions that arise because of the Jewish question. Then we have, kind of in the same type, but I know these are Jewish, peoples like Michael Hart or Michael Levin. These are scientifically minded Jews who flirt with, who are very close to white nationalism, as close as you can be, while knowing that you yourself are not white. So these people, they tackle the question of race, feminism, the destructive aspect of modernity. And there's Paul Gottfried, I think. These are the kind of Jews who are very close to white nationalism, and they are the perfect white nationalist, except for the fact that they are not white, but they are close to the white nationalist circles, and to accuse them of not doing enough for white nationalism is kind of unfair because they cannot change their ethnicity. They change their mindset, but they cannot biologically transform themselves. So they do their best from the perspective of a white nationalist audience. Then, on an even higher level, one might say, there are Jews like Rothbard, Mises, and Ayn Rand. They are figures of consciousness. They do not talk about the ethnic question, but they talk about economics, and they defend a libertarian, capitalist worldview. And they exert a tremendously powerful influence upon many whites, and non-whites also, and they have influenced the lives of many white economists, like Henry Hazlitt, who was a student of Mises, Hans Hermann Hoppe, the Mises Institute. So these Jews are very intelligent, very strong in character, very clear-minded, they have a lot of will, and the counterpart of these libertarian Jews are Jews like Karl Marx, Trotsky, Rosa Luxemburg, who are the left-wing counterpart of these right-wing libertarian Jews. And from the perspective of whites, there's this idea that both sides, the communist, economically minded Jews and the libertarian minded Jews, are kind of two sides of the same coin, and that they are manipulating whites. So this idea is kind of insane, because it means that the Jews are so smart that they are capable of understanding the most complex ideas about economics, politics, society, to understand the opposite point of view, and to understand the point of view of those that in the mind of white nationalists are their enemies, namely whites. That's what the white nationalists project onto the Jews. So these Jews would be so smart, so intelligent, that they would have a total understanding of everything, and they would use this total understanding to manipulate others. And this idea is delirious. To accuse Rothbard or Mises or Ayn Rand of having afterthoughts, of being in a manipulative process, is simply delirious, I believe. And the same goes with people like Michael Hart and Levin and so on and so forth. Then we meet the figure of the poor Jew. The poor Jew is just the average Jew, whether he lives in Israel or in Western Europe or anywhere else, and he may be just religiously Jewish, he believes in his Jewish God, but he's just an ordinary person. He just wants bread on his table, and he's not scheming and manipulating every day and every night, thinking about how can I wreak havoc and manipulate the white race and whatever. He's just a normal person. And the Jewish bell curve for the Ashkenazi Jews is one standard deviation above that of the whites and two standard deviations above that of blacks. But there are Jews who are cognitively limited. It's a mathematical necessity. And for those Jews, they are not always poor, but for the averagely intelligent and economically deprived or economically average Jew, he's just a normal human being. He just wants to enjoy what can be enjoyed, to have a sense of self-worth, to have love relationships, to do what he enjoys, to avoid what he dislikes, to work and eat food. And he's just a normal person. And to the idea that the poor Jew is like the top Jew, that I will come to that later, is delirious. So yeah. Then there is the wealthy Jews, because in democratic societies, wealth and social status are very highly correlated, and that's a logical syllogism. If the Jews are more intelligent than the rest of the population on average, and if there is free competition between the citizens to access the higher social status, then it means that a higher proportion of Jews will access a higher proportion of well-paid jobs, like lawyers, doctors, and so on and so forth. And these wealthy Jews, these successful Jews, they may be believers or not, they have a tendency to be more ethnocentric than the average white, and they may have a tendency to promote left-wing politics, moderate left-wing politics, while being themselves right-wingers within their own ethnic group, but that's not true for all. So they are an ambiguous figure. They just enjoy the benefits of being smarter than the average, and then whatever they do in the political realm or the cultural realm, well, that's their own business, but that's a figure of consciousness. Then another figure of consciousness it's not necessarily opposed to all the previous one. It can be derived from, but there is the figure of consciousness, which is the comical Jew. In America, it's very present that there are many Jewish comedians, because the Jews have a very good sense of humor, and I can think of Woody Allen, of course, Mel Brooks, and Isaac Asimov. He was not really a comedian, he was a writer, but he wrote a book about humor. And it is true that the Jews, it's a moment in the development of the Jewish identity that there are Jews who have a very good sense of humor. They are very comical. And in order to be comical, one has to suffer, because there are different kinds of humor, and mockery, to mock the other, is not really good humor. A real good spiritual humor comes from a sense of suffering. And those Jews are so comical because deep down they must suffer, I guess. But this is a figure of consciousness that the Jews are gifted for making good jokes. And yeah. Then there's the figure of consciousness of the hysterical, paranoid, insane Jew. The Jews, from a clinical, medical standpoint, suffer from a higher proportion of mental diseases. There are very high rates of suicide among the Jews. I'm talking about the Ashkenazi Jews. And they have a tendency, it has been shown by people like Kevin MacDonald and other studies, medical studies, that the Jews suffer proportionately of much higher rates of insanity. So it's not easy to be a Jew. And they are not faking, they are really paranoid or insane or hysterical, or they are really suffering psychologically and clinically. And this is a figure of the Jewish people. There are crazy Jews who suffer from their own insanity, and one should not despise them, but try to understand them and cure their suffering by offering understanding, I guess. Then there's the figure of the academic Jew. I'm talking here about the left-wing academic Jew. And in the mind of the white nationalists, these kind of Jews are manipulative Jews. They spend their entire career gathering data to falsify the data to promote left-wing, anti-racist, universalist viewpoints. I will not name names, but I know that in the fields of genetics and cultural anthropological studies, there have been Jews who have been manipulating the data and promoting a false view of reality to serve probably political aims. But it is true on the other side as well. There are right-wing researchers who also probably falsify the data to promote their own ends. So the academic world is not easy. There is manipulation and lack of honesty, and it's very difficult to be honest. But yeah. Then there's the figure of consciousness of the fanatical rabbi. He's a religious fanatics. And these are the kind of people that we find in the Jewish writings of the how do you call it? The Book of the Jews. I forgot. But this is a part of the Talmud. That's what the word I was looking for. The Talmudic Jews, those religiously minded Jews who are fully devoted to their religion, and yeah, they are kind of the mirror image of some fanatically minded right-wing white Europeans, in a sense, but they have more religious inspiration than the whites, but they are a figure of consciousness of the Jewish people. Then maybe the most complex, I don't know, there's the figure of consciousness which is present in the mind of mostly white nationalists, the manipulative Jew, which is the Jew in the mind of the white nationalist. And all the figures of consciousness that I have just listed are assimilated to this idea of the Jew, the eternal Jew, the typical Jew. And that's not fair. That's what I've tried to show, is that to accuse the poor average Jew of being a manipulative Jew is not fair. To accuse the comical Jew, the libertarian Jew, the almost white nationalist kind of Jew, or to accuse all of these people of being embodiments of the eternal Jew and the eternal idea of the manipulating Jew who is involved in banking, who promotes race mixing for Europeans, who promotes cultural degeneracy, who promotes wars in the Middle East. This is the projection. I know that there are Jews like this who exist. There are manipulative Jews like there are manipulative Europeans, manipulative Chinese, Muslims, Asians, whatever. So they really exist. But to believe that all the Jews are this image of the Jew is not honest. Precisely because I have shown that there are many figures of consciousness within the figure of the Jew. And I will make a remark that I found in Greg Johnson. He says that not most, but a lot of Jews suffer from their own poison. There are, in the view of white nationalists, cultural degeneracy and not having children is a form of poison. And they have the honesty to acknowledge that there are many Jews, whether they are wealthy Jews or comical Jews or hysterical, paranoid Jews or even manipulative Jews. I don't know, one of the figures of consciousness that I've just listed, and there are maybe others that I have not yet listed. I'm just trying to gather the knowledge that I know. But there are many Jews who are homosexual in the sense that they do not have children. They use what is considered as culturally decadent ways of behavior. So they promote, or they don't, but they may promote decadence, and they themselves suffer from the decadence that they promote. So it's complex because in the mind of some white nationalists, there's this idea that some Jews, at least, are fanatical workers who devote their entire existence, their entire being to one idea, bringing about the downfall of the white race, and that they devote themselves fully to this idea. And this idea of full logical and spiritual and ethical devotion to one idea is the embodiment of an Aryan mindset. Because in the mind of these white nationalists, those Jews, which probably do not even exist, but they are fully idealist minded people. And they are, in their behavior, they are Aryans in a way. So that's the mirror image. And I will make another remark. From the point of view of God, if God could look at the Jews, he would see that, on average, he has given them intelligence, humor, power, on average, prestige, and also the lack of prestige, because the Jews are admired and kind of despised also. And he has given them suffering also. Not to all of them, but on average, the Jews have suffered a lot. But he would notice that the Jews have always remained faithful and loyal. They are the most faithful and most loyal people to God. They have always obeyed God, whatever happened. And not many people have had such a loyalty to their God, and that must be acknowledged. And finally, I will talk about Spinoza. Spinoza was persecuted by the fanatical Jews in his community. And Spinoza was kind of praised by Alfred Rosenberg and William Pierce. They try to say, he was close to our view of the world, but he was a little bit too much Jewish. But that's coming from them, that's the highest praise you can get. And Spinoza inspired Romanticism, a typically European movement of culture and thought and ideas, and he inspired Schelling and Hegel. And And the most famous Jews probably are Jesus, Karl Marx and Einstein, I guess, and maybe Freud. And Spinoza is a little bit less famous, but he was a great thinker as well. And one should not forget that the greatest man who ever lived, who was probably Jesus, he was a Jew. So yeah, I try to give a broad view of the Jewish question, which is a very complex question, and in order to grasp the Jewish mystery, one has to envision all the figures of consciousness, and to grasp the unity in the many, in the diversity, and the diversity in the unity. And yeah.